All right, testing microphone check 1. Cool, that seems good. Boom, there we are. Here we are together. Hello, and welcome to another Tuesday afternoon hangout, talk about making music stream here at Catalyze Academy. My name is Zaak Kerstetter, and this is what we do here on Tuesdays. And then on Fridays, we come in and we do a little bit of a song feedback stream. So if you have songs that you would like to share and get some feedback on from both myself and other members of the community, come back on Friday, because that's what we'll be doing. But today, we're going to be hanging out and talking about making music with Live. I try to treat these as if they are basically just office hours. So you can come in and ask me questions about anything related to music production with Ableton Live, and I will try to answer your questions. And sometimes that takes us on wild tangents and all over the place. And sometimes if nobody has any questions, I will just be kind of hanging out, making some weird noises, experimenting with ideas and things like that. So that's going to be the plan for today. So if anybody out there in chat world has any questions or things that they would like to go over, definitely let me know, because that's what we're here for, even if I'm talking about something totally different at the time. So today I didn't really have a whole lot planned. I did want to experiment a little bit more with 11.1 and what it can do. So especially the shifter audio effect, which I think is really cool and I think has some interesting potential. What's up, After Party? How are you doing today? Good to see you. What's up, Kennedy? So new to this for today in Ableton less than a year. Well, yeah, welcome, man. If you have any questions, as I mentioned earlier, about any particular topics or production techniques or just things you want to know about Live, that's what I'm here for. So let me know in the chat if you got specific things you want to get into. So yeah, so I do want to play around with a little more shifter. If you missed the stream last week where I was going over a lot of the new features in 11.1, this is one of the big updates. It's basically the old frequency shifter device, but it's been updated with one really big new feature and a couple smaller features. The big new feature is we can now tune in semitones and in cents, which we could not do before. We could only either do the frequency shifter or the ring shifter, or ring modulator. And it also has a built-in delay. It's got extra LFO options. It's got lots of cool stuff you can do with it. And it also has a MIDI input, so you can control the pitch of a sound with another sound. So what I wanted to do is, unless anybody has other stuff they want to talk about, I want to explore a little bit more about how this works and how this sounds, specifically in comparison to just pitching a clip up and down. So if you take an audio clip, you can always pitch it up and down however you want. And I'm curious, like, in that situation, you are using the warp modes to stretch and change the pitch of your audio. In this situation, we're using what I'm assuming is a different algorithm. So I wanted to kind of compare the two and see if one sounds better than the other, or there are situations where you might use the frequency shifter, or situations where you might just automate the pitch of a clip. So that's the first thing I'm gonna try out, because I have not had a chance to try it out yet, and I haven't done this yet, so I don't know what the answer is. So we're gonna test this out ourselves. So I want to try this on something like some percussion, for example. So let me find like a percussive loop. Cool. So we're going to take something like this guy. And like I said, we're going to try changing the pitch here, depending on which warp mode we're using. I'm like really not sure I like the new layout for these clips here. I would like want to be able to see multiple things simultaneously. So Ableton, I know you're watching this. Change it back to the way it was. I'm like not into it yet. But I want the warp modes here. So here on complex. So we're gonna try out the pitch shifter first, and then we're gonna try warping it. I'm just gonna duplicate this over here. And I guess we'll just do this. Cool. So we'll try that later on, but we're gonna try just first automating this up and down just to kind of see how it sounds. So we can just right click on this, hit show automation. It'll take us in here. We'll change our grid size to be a little bigger. And we can see this allows us to just pitch up and down in different semitones in different direction. So we'll have it start on 0 for a minute, and then we'll go up to 3, and we'll go up to 5, and then we'll go up to 7, just to see how that sounds. Sounds kind of like you would expect it. And then let's compare that to doing the exact same thing, but in this case, we're gonna be doing it on the clip. And I'll just make the grid size a little bigger. So I did 3, and I did 5, and I did 7. So here's the same kind of pitching technique, but we're gonna be using the transposition using warping instead of using the transposition on the shifter. So in this particular situation, I think this sounds way better. This sounds a lot cleaner than this. You get some like weird flanging stuff that's going on here that you are not getting when you just transpose it. So that's an interesting first result here. Also, I'm seeing that there are a few more people who are just joining us. As of right now, I'm just screwing around with the frequency shifter. But if you have questions or things that you would like for me to talk about, feel free to just let me know in the chat. That's what the chat is here for. Cool. So let's try comparing this on a few different warp modes and see if that makes a difference here. See if something sounds a little closer. Beats mode might sound a little more similar. That sounds a little bit more like what's happening here. It sounds... It's not quite the same, but it's pretty similar. Let's try it on tones mode. Yeah, so it sounds more like tones mode. Whereas repitched is going to sound a lot cleaner. Or complex pro. Or complex pro. Interesting. So it sounds kind of on par with tones and textures, in my opinion, which are not my favorite warp modes for doing pitch stuff. Yeah, the frequency shifter was kind of a weird device because it lacked this big feature here. It lacked the ability to tune things up and down in semitones. So now that they've added it, it's a lot more viable because before you had to do it just in hertz, which can sound cool. It's good for like weird sound effects, but it's not great for other things. Cool. So that's good to know. It sounds kind of like tones mode, in my opinion. Just for science, we'll do it one more time. This is the frequency shifter. And then here is the same thing on tones mode. I actually think tones mode even sounds a little better. Interesting question, After Party. So you tried to replicate my wobble bass sound using operator from an older version of tutorial, and then Redux was updated, and then I couldn't get the same sound. Any tips? So yeah, so I actually tried this out right after Live 11 came out, just to make sure it still works. So what we're talking about here is using the Redux And the big thing that they changed was that this knob used to go up to get more distortion, and now it goes down. But I found that if you kept the value right around this area, right around like, I don't know, 1K to 2K, maybe 3K, I got a really similar sound to it. And let's see if we can, let's try to recreate it real quick. And I'm not entirely sure I remember exactly how I made that sound. I'm pretty sure. It started something like this, and I think we used like a bandpass on this. I think I used operator, but it's basically the same thing. Yeah, something like this. I might have used a sine wave with distortion, I forget. Whatever it is we're starting with, doesn't matter a whole lot. And then we put a bit of LFO on the filter frequency. So start off with something like that, and then toss a redux on it. And do something like that. Yeah, I think that's kind of what we're going for. The other big thing we now have access to is the dry wet control here, so you can control the amount. The other thing you really need to watch out for is make sure your filter doesn't go too high, because up here it sounds like garbage. But if you keep it real low, you get that nice kind of like gritty, kind of growly sound. Something kind of like that. Try some unison on it. Yeah, like that. Does that kind of answer your question a little bit? The where you put the rate here is not super important. They can all sound good depending on what you're going for. Depends on like how aggressive do you want that kind of like scratchy, growly sound to be in there. I personally like it right in this kind of area here, but it's totally up to you. The big thing is just making sure your filter is kind of in the right place. You can also bump the resonance on it as well. Yeah, and those are the kind of the main things you should like look out for. There you go. And like a lot of times there's like this sweet spots with the rate. They'll get you like really nice kind of sounds. Yeah. Yeah, you really just kind of got to fiddle around with it. There's not going to be like one specific way to do it, but that's kind of where I'd get started. Is like this kind of range for the rate is where you get a lot of those nice kind of crunchy, bit crushed kind of sounds. Or downsampled kind of sounds. It's a good question though. Glad people are going through and watching some of the older videos. Some of them definitely need to be updated a little bit. But I appreciate the question. All right, so jumping back over here to this frequency shifter guy, I think it sounds slightly worse than the tone setting and slightly better than beats mode. So Ryan wants to know if we can go over the buffer shuffler. Absolutely. I think I went over it on stream like 3 or 4 weeks ago, but we can definitely go over it again because it's a really cool effect. I just want to try one more experiment with this real quick just to kind of compare them again. So shifter. And then there's beats mode. Yeah, shifter sounds better than beats mode, but not as good as tones mode, which is a pretty low bar. So that's interesting so far. And then what I'm really concerned about is like not really concerned, but I also want to experiment some more with like playing with some more of these settings and see if we can make it sound better. But yeah, we can take this sound here and let's grab the buffer shuffler, which I believe is in the M4L Big 3. That's 1.0. It's in the Max 5 Essentials pack. Yeah, Max for Live Essentials pack. So this is a Max for Live device that is free. It's in the Essentials pack if you have the Suite version live. Really, really fantastic effect if you are into any kind of glitchy, weird music. It's basically an effects sequencer that allows you to control all kinds of cool things simultaneously. So we can do things like reverse parts of a clip. We can turn things off. We can change what happens when. It's going to automatically slice your clip based on the grid, and then also allow you to do things like little beat repeat effects, chop things out, change the pitch, change the volume, change the panning, and all of those things together get some like really cool, weird, glitchy combinations. So if you just hit play, you'll see it's automatically moving through the buffer shuffler, the sequence based off of the number of steps you want to have here. So you could have like 32 steps or 16 or 8 or whatever, or like a weird number if you wanted to. But realistically, like 8 or so. So we have this, and now if I play sound through it, it's the same clip. So now what I can do is, first off, I could move these around to change the order in which it's playing. To basically do like old school Dr. Rex or old school sampler style moving things around, so you can just like change the order of these slices. We can also do things like reverse them. So now this slice will be reversed. Or you can mute them. Like that. One thing you will notice is it does take your sample and load it up into a buffer, which is why it's called the buffer shuffler. So the first time you do it, it's not going to do it. Now that it's loaded, it actually works. Let's try 16ths. So it can get pretty crazy pretty fast depending on like how nuts you want to go with it. We'll go back to 8s here. So that's the first layer of the buffer shuffler. You can do this for your left and right side. And let me go ahead and make this not quite as crazy. We'll just do more like a regular sequence so we can try out some of the other effects. Although we'll keep this one reversed and we'll keep this one reversed. So now if I go over here to the stutter, this is basically going to act like a beat repeat. So I can have things repeat. Yeah, it's a multi-effect sequencer. So it has like tons of options for playing around with things. So it's like if you like beat repeat, if you like chopping things up, if you like glitching things, this thing is perfect. So this is basically the number of repeats. So really high number here means it's going to repeat really fast. Which is pretty cool. What's up, Beatmaker? How you doing today? And Narkle, you as well. So that's the stutter. We also have a gate, so we can essentially turn down the volume of different slices. And again, I'm going to reset these so we can do it one at a time. So if I want to basically turn some of these off, so you can basically mute things here as well. After party, yeah. So if it says 47 packs available, those are most likely ones that are already registered to your account. So if you own the Suite version of Live, it's most likely ones that just come with those. And then occasionally they'll just release some free ones as well. Yeah, so we can gate things. We can play with the pitch. So this allows us to pitch things up and down. You can turn all of them on and off here with this button. So we can pitch things. So it pitches them up and down. I believe it's 12 semitones in either direction, which is pretty cool. It doesn't do probability, but you can like hit the random button, so you can like randomize things if you want. If you want to do probability, you can do a lot of really similar stuff to this in the probability pack, which is another free pack if you own the Suite version of Live. So yeah, so pitch controls, and then shift. I think shift is going to be a frequency control. So pitch is going to pitch you up and down in semitones, and shift will allow you to pitch things up and down in hertz. And you can change the minimum and maximum range here, which sounds super crazy. And then we have volume control here. What's up, Willie? How are you doing today? And then we have panning, which is pretty obvious. You can just pan things left and right. Now, the cool thing about this is we can like mix and match and start using these all together. So I can turn the pitch back on. Let's add in some stutters here and here and here. Let's tone some of these stutters down a little bit. So yeah, super cool way to just like take a regular sounding beat, make it sound nuts. Like I said, if you're into glitch music, glitch hop, anything like that, just really fun. We can randomize stuff if we want. Just get lots of like crazy stuff out of it with like very, very little effort. You can save them into different patterns. You can jump back and forth to different patterns. You can adjust the dry wet. Freeze it. There's all like there's just like a lot of cool things you can do. Oh, that's cool. It has a little visualizer here. So yeah, really fun effect that can do lots and lots of things all in one place. Once you kind of realize it's just like, it's basically like 6 different effect sequencers, 7 different effect sequencers, all kind of in one. You can start mixing and match them, and if you like, you can turn some of these off. Yeah, really fun. Could be really cool for live performance if you're doing like a lot of like just looping percussive stuff, where it sounds really cool in melodies as well. So you can like toss a melody in here and then use this to kind of like tweak it. And yeah, fantastic effect. Really, really underappreciated. Definitely worth checking out. I don't remember who originally asked me about that, but let me know if there's any other questions you have about it. But that's kind of the basic idea. Everything else is like pretty self-explanatory. Once you play with it for a bit, you should be able to pick it up pretty easy. What's up, Roberto? How you doing today? Beatmaker, do you have a question? Well, we started talking about the new frequency shifter effect in Live 11.1, and then somebody was just asking me about buffer shuffler. So we were talking about that, and just how kind of like cool this thing is and all the fun stuff you can do with it, because it's got a lot of fun stuff in there. Sweet, we got all kinds of people in here today. This is awesome. So if you are just joining us and you have a question you would like to ask about making music with Ableton Live, go ahead and toss it in the chat, and I will do my best to make sure I answer everybody's questions. So Musictron is asking, is there any way to use headphone or speaker correction on master to make browser preview go through the correction as well? So I'm assuming you're talking about something like, what's that company called that has like the thing, the headphone correction? I know what you're talking about. SonarWorks. I'm assuming you're talking about something like SonarWorks, right? Where you want to be able to get the correction for your headphones or whatever, but also through whatever is coming through your preview. So when you like click in here and you click on a sample, whatever, that also goes through your correction. If that's the question, then the way I'd recommend doing it is using the application rather than using it as a plugin. So if you're using SonarWorks, you can just run the system-wide version of SonarWorks. I'm not sure if you have to pay separately for that than you do for the plugin. But if you're using that, everything that's coming through your entire system will go through SonarWorks, and then that will 100% apply to anything in the browser. If you are just using the plugin that goes, like you put the plugin on your master, I don't think SonarWorks is going to apply to that in that situation. So the answer is use the system-wide version as opposed to the plugin. I know they have both because I've used both before. Let me look it up to see if it's a separate thing though. So for these guys who are not aware, there are multiple companies now, but SonarWorks is the big one where they basically have an application that will EQ and adjust your audio depending on what kind of speakers you have or what kind of headphones you have, and it's actually pretty cool, and it's definitely worth checking out. And there is the plugin version, and then there's the system-wide version that I am not sure if they're the same thing. Yeah, system-wide calibration is what you want. Are they the same? Do you buy them all as one though? Anybody use SonarWorks that knows off the top of their head? Yeah, you might need to like buy the bundle or something. But yeah, that's the answer. Is just get the system-wide version as opposed to just the plugin version. All right, Ryan, we can definitely go over the inputs on Granulator. Let me just make sure I'm catching up with chat. And then Willie is asking, so last Friday on chat, I revealed one of my big plans for next year, which is to release 52 songs next year. So basically one song a week for the entire year. I'm going to make a video on this coming closer to November. Essentially at the start of 2021, end of 2020, I decided to start the YouTube channel. And I was like, okay, I'm going to release 2 videos a year on YouTube just to see what happens, essentially. And that was basically a year ago. And I've done 2 videos a week for a year. And I've learned a lot about making videos and YouTube and all that kind of stuff. However, my ability to produce and release music has definitely decreased because I've been spending a lot of time not only teaching, but doing video stuff, doing YouTube stuff, doing live streaming. So my goal is next year, I'm gonna go down to 1 video a week and 1 song a week. And I want to take a lot of the workflow techniques and things that I've learned just from making videos for this last year and apply those to making music and deadlines, and just kind of like that's the plan. And that way I can still be making YouTube videos, still be doing the channel, still doing this kind of stuff, still to be streaming, but also like making a really concentrated, dedicated effort to finishing and releasing music. And at the end of year, probably pick like the 10 or so best songs out of the 52 and then release those as an album. But I'll release all the songs as the year goes on. So that's kind of the idea. And I'm going to make it open as like a challenge to all the people who are involved in the channel, all the people who are watching the channel. And we can all kind of do it together, keep each other accountable, that kind of thing. I'm going to have more details in the future exactly how I'm going to do it. I might make it just a flat 50. And that way, if you have to go out of town for a week or something comes up, you don't have to feel bad. It's like you get 2 free weeks where you just like take a vacation. That's fine. So 50 songs in a year. And then if a bunch of people end up doing it, if it gains a lot of traction and people are into it, I'm planning on maybe making a compilation album of like the best songs, like everybody's #1 best song, and then like putting it on an album and then like release it on Bandcamp or something like that. But the big thing is focusing on workflow, really kind of like making it really streamlined, because I've gotten my video workflow really down. Like I can just sit down and crank out a video, no problem. And I want to get to the same point with music where it's okay, I sit down, I crank out a song, boom, there it is. Which I can do now, but I want to like really get into it and like really like get my workflow and get my process dialed in super tight, so I can just do that. And yeah, like I did for videos. Man, we got a bunch of questions here. Ryan, I have not forgotten your question about Granulator. We'll get to that once I kind of catch up with some of the other questions, because Granulator thing's going to take a minute. All right. So Beatmaker Society was asking about his computer blue screened and he lost all his music. And that's a thing that happens all the time. It's crazy how often hard drives will just die and fail and turn into nothingness. So 2 ways to back up your stuff. Number 1 is get a second hard drive and just back it up. There are softwares out there that will allow you to basically mirror hard drives. And so that way, I use one hard drive as my main hard drive. This is the one I use every day. This has all the stuff on it. And I've got another one that once every week or 2 or however often I'll plug in, hit the button, and it syncs the 2 together. So anything that's been updated will be updated on the second hard drive. That's a really solid thing to do, especially if you're working a lot in your kind of like everyday life. The other thing that I used to do that I actually stopped doing is a cloud backup service. So there are a bunch of these now where you can just like get a cloud backup that are fairly affordable. And this is just the first link I clicked on, but these are a bunch of different services out there where basically, $49, a lot of them are like $10 or $15 a month. You can just back up basically unlimited storage. So there's a bunch of them. Carbonite, Backblaze, I've tried those. And the first time you do it, it takes a long time because it has to back up like all of your stuff. But then after that, whenever you change something, it just changes it in the backup. And that way, if your entire, your house burns down or whatever, including all of your hard drives and all everything else, you can just re-download on another computer. So if you were like concerned about backups, try one of these out. I tried Backblaze for a long time, and then, like I said, I canceled it a little while ago just because I'd never ever used it. And it's the kind of thing that, like, when you get all your backups in order, when you have everything kind of set up, your hard drives never die. But whenever you're in a situation where your stuff is not backed up, those things crash and those things die all the time. So yeah, if you're serious about your music, get a cloud backup, and use an extra hard drive. Those are my two solutions. And like I said, they work pretty well. I know people have had to use them and they work. Sometimes it's a pain to get all your stuff back, but it's better to get it back as opposed to just losing everything. And then Dan was asking, can you talk sometime a bit about the whole Ableton Certified Trainer thing? How long, difficult, costly, etc. was it? And would you recommend it to people? So yeah, there are, first off, being a certified trainer is awesome. If you have the opportunity, if you're in a position where you find yourself like where you can go for it, do it. It's super cool. I'll talk a bit about the process first, how you get certified, and then I can talk about like what it means to be a certified trainer and how that kind of works. First off, the Ableton certification is a teacher certification. A lot of other softwares and companies out there have different level user certifications. So if you're like a Pro Tools user, you can get like different level Pro Tools certifications. Ableton as a company doesn't do that. They only give out certifications to teachers. So people who are active in the community, who are helping people, who are, working at schools or running user groups or teaching or whatever. Those are the only people they're interested in certifying. So if you're just somebody who likes to use Ableton and you know Ableton inside and out, but you're not an educator or you're not involved in the community that way, the certification, that's not really what they're looking for in a certified trainer. So what you need to do in order to become certified is you need to go to the Ableton website, and down at the bottom of the page, let me pull this up here. Down the bottom, there is Become a Certified Trainer right here. You click on this, it will give you all the info that I'm about to explain here. And then there's this option for how do you apply. So first thing you need to do is you need to wait until a certification event happens. And certification events don't happen that often. In fact, there were none in 2021 because of COVID. So you have to wait for a certification event to happen, and the event has to happen in the area of the world that you live in. As you can see, there's one in like Australia, there's one in India, there's one in the UK, there's one in France. I think some of these actually were postponed because of COVID, maybe. There's one in Beijing, there's one in Berlin, wherever. So you have to wait till there's one in the area that you live in, which is the hardest part because they don't happen very often. Once the applications are open, so if you're looking for it, like you need to like check this all the time. Just like always be looking at, like when I was trying to become a certified trainer, every single day I just check this just to see when applications would open up. Once you do that, once there is an event, you need to give them a interest form. You need to fill that out. You need to send them a CV, a letter of motivation, an example curriculum, and a video of yourself. So you basically bundle all this stuff together. You send it off to Ableton. They review it. If you pass that, then you do a phone interview, which I'm not allowed to talk about. You do a phone interview. And then if you pass the phone interview, you go to a certification event. Certification event, I also am not allowed to talk about, but it is at a specific time and date. And you go there and you basically do a bunch of stuff with Ableton, and it's super cool. And like I said, I highly recommend it to anybody who is at that level. If you are, really love teaching and you really love Ableton Live and you want to take that to the next step and have a relationship with Ableton as companies, then 100% go for it. Definitely worth it. There are some costs involved, but again, I don't think I'm allowed to tell you what they are, but 100% worth it every single way. I did mine in 2015 or 16, somewhere in there. It's about 5 years ago. But the first time I applied was like 2013, and I did not get in. And then I applied again in 2015, and I got in. But yeah, you can check these out. Well, it's probably in here, actually. 2016, September 2016 is when I did it. So yeah, 5 years ago. But yeah, so once you become certified, there are a number of benefits to it. You get listed on the Ableton website. If you guys have not checked this out, you can check out my profile, which I need to update. You can go in here, you get listed. You get a bit more of a relationship with Ableton as a company, so you get to know them. So here are all the certified trainers from all over the world. I think that when I got certified, there's about 250, and now I think there's like 300, maybe a little more than 300 people worldwide. But really cool community. I know a lot of the other certified trainers in the US. I hang out with them. We talk about music stuff. It's really cool. It's really awesome that if I like want to go visit a city that I haven't been to before, I can just like reach out to whoever the local certified trainer is, and then I like automatically have a connection in that place. But yeah, it's a pretty intense process, and there's, like I said, not a whole lot of people worldwide who do it, and it's really cool. I really enjoy it. And then yeah, definitely recommend doing it if you are, like I said, an educator and somebody who wants to be involved in the Ableton world. All right. And then Kennedy is asking, is there a way to shift key in the MIDI view? Hard to explain. The breakdown of melody something, then changes actual MIDI notes. That makes sense. So yeah, so if you want to have something change from one key to another, so say for example, let's just use the built-in key mode here to make this easy. So if you haven't tried this out in Live 11, you can pick your scale here. So whatever key you want to be in. Yeah, no problem, Dan. If you have more questions about certified training stuff, let me know. Some of it I've like, there's NDA on, so I'm not allowed to talk about it, but there's anything that's public knowledge I can talk about. So I can hit the scale button. So if I like plugged in a melody here, and this melody is in D minor, and then I wanted to shift this to be in like, I don't know, E minor, I could like take these guys, and then just use the arrow keys to like move it up and down, and then that would shift it to a different key. That'd be one way to do it. Or if you're not using the scale mode, again, everything right now is going to be in E minor. We could just take all these notes and just arrow key to move them up and down to put them in the particular key you want to be in. And then you can use this to like double check to make sure it's in that key. I'm hoping that answers your question. Hopefully that makes sense, Kennedy. Oh, you said without changing the actual MIDI notes. Okay, yeah, in that case, automation, especially using something like the pitch device. This guy's really handy, pitch MIDI effect. It just allows you to pitch things up and down. And then you can just automate that, of course. So you could have these notes in here and just go use that to pitch individual notes up or down wherever you wanted to. If that way, if you wanted the notes to be a particular value, they would stay that particular value. But you could still pitch things up and down. Yeah, he said specifically MIDI, so this would be the easy way to do it. The other way to do it would be using the shifter here, which we just learned does not sound as good as just pitching things up and down as the warp modes, at least in the very limited example of what I've done. But yeah, pitch MIDI effect, that's all it really does. It's just one knob, pitches things up and down, and then you automate that however you want to. Top packs in Suite. So a lot of the Max for Live ones are really cool, and so the Max for Live Essentials is really cool. The Probability Pack is really cool. This is a bunch of really interesting, cool, weird sequencers that's worth checking out. I really like the Beat Tools pack. A lot of times if I just like really quickly need some drums, I'll just use the Beat Tools pack. A lot of the like individual device ones are cool, like Convolution, Reverb. If you haven't used that, it's really cool. I use CV tools all the time for my modular synthesis. A lot of the newer ones are pretty cool, but I don't have any that like in particular I really love. Like Drive and Glow is pretty cool. Glitch and Wash is pretty cool. I mostly like the Max for Live ones. Those are like the main ones I use. Yeah, I have a bunch. I have basically all of them, so a lot of them I haven't even downloaded on this computer. Max 5 is dope. It's definitely worth checking out. Oh yeah, the other one is the Granulator 2, which segues back into a question I got earlier about the Granulator 2. This is a really dope Max for Live device that is a granular synthesizer, which allows you to do crazy, weird sounding stuff. Yeah, CV tools specifically allows me to send CV. I can convert Midi to CV and then send that CV to my hardware, module hardware, and then I can control all of that with Live. So I can basically tempo sync all the sequencers on my hardware to all of Live. So everything is matched together and it works awesome. All right. Who was asking about this? Ryan. Ryan, hopefully you're still there. You were asking specifically about the live input on the Granulator, I would believe. And why is that? Now, why is the live input not working? Do I need to have a sample on here? All right, well. Does it need to be on an audio track? Let's do this. All right, this is not working the way I thought it was going to. So let's see if we can make this happen. All right, so I haven't used this feature in a while. So let me first talk about Granulator and what it is and what it does. And then we'll talk about using the live input on the Granulator because it's pretty crazy. So the Granulator essentially is a granular synthesizer designed by Robert Henke, the guy who built Live, designed Live, one of the guys, which allows you to basically take a sample. And let me find a sample that sounds cool. Let's find like a loop. So we take something like this, it loads it up in here, and the way a granular synthesizer works is instead of playing from the beginning to the end of a sample, it's going to jump around randomly. And you can control that randomness, but it ends up sounding really, really crazy. So if I play a note right now, you can see there's this little orange area. That's basically the area it's randomly picking from. However, it can also go outside that area. So as I play a note, you can see that little orange, those like yellowish lines lighting up. That's the current part of the sample we're hearing. Now we can change where this orange area is with the file position. So you can hear it's kind of looping that little area there. I can adjust the size of the orange area with the grain right here. So if I make this really large, it's going through and it's playing different parts of that. If I turn up the spray, it's going to randomize where that is coming from. So if I turn this up, so you can see it's even choosing places outside of my range. So depending on how you have all of these controls set, file position is which part of the sample you want. Grain size is the size of the area that we're going to be sampling. And spray is going to randomize it, including going outside of that area. So in a situation like this, you get this really weird, glitchy kind of sound. Which sounds really cool. And on top of that, we can do lots of processing to it. We can add LFOs to different places. We can scan it, which will like make it go even more randomly. We can hit this button here and we get all of our regular kind of synthesis options. We have our volume envelope, we have pitch controls, we have FM synthesis, we have filter. We filter right here. We have ADSR controls, extra filter here. So it's basically a sampler, but it allows you to jump around a sample. And you can do crazy stuff with this. Sounds really cool on vocals. Like take this, play with these 3 controls on the vocals, and it just sounds like madness, chaos, and it sounds really cool. And you'll probably recognize it. You may have heard it in songs before. So if you're into that kind of thing, it's awesome. Love it. Super cool. However, I believe it was Ryan was asking specifically about the live input option right here, which honestly, I haven't really used in a long time. I played around with it a long time ago, but we're going to try testing this out and seeing if we can make this work. So we're going to delete this guy. So instead of having a sample loaded up in there that it will start randomly jumping between, we're going to get a live input going in there. So we're going to go back to our live packs. We're going to go to our granulator here. And then there's also this granulator input, which is a separate device. We're going to take this separate device and we're going to put it on this loop we have over here. And if I'm not mistaken, this is an audio effect that's going to take this signal, send it from this track where it's on into the granulator. And I believe I can even turn this down so we don't actually have to hear it. And then over here, we can see this is lighting up, letting me know it's getting a signal. So if I hit this button, it just grabbed a little thing. And now if I play it, oops. So it's just grabbing whatever's coming out of this. And then basically automatically puts it inside here. And then of course we can like do all that kind of weird stuff. So that, as far as I know, is how it works. You just hit the grab button as you have a signal on another track. We can change the size of it here in milliseconds. So if we want a larger size, put this in here. And just gives us whatever's coming out there. You can also hit the grab button there. That's the same thing as hitting the grab button here. So you could be doing live vocals. You could be singing into a microphone, have that signal go into live, hit this button, it samples a little tiny bit of your vocal, and then you could start playing it and doing weird stuff with it. Which could be really fun. I think if you're doing like a weird experimental set, doing live vocals and then doing live granular synthesis on your vocals could be really fun and really weird. But Ryan, hopefully that answers your question there. Literally, you just open up a granulator with nothing going on, grab the input effect, put the input effect on whatever track you want. You can set the size of your sample here. And then anytime you want to sample it, you can either hit the grab button there, or you hit the grab button here, and that just takes a new little tiny slice of whatever you're sending to it. So hopefully that answers your question. Really fun effect, or really fun device. If you have not been doing granular synthesis, you are missing out. It is the wave of the future. It's a little tricky. It's a little weird to use correctly, or not correctly, make it sound good. But when you get it sounding cool, it sounds awesome. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense to you. And I think at this point I've caught up with all the questions in chat, I think. So if you have anything else you want me to cover, let me know in the chat. Appreciate all you guys popping in today. If you have not already, go ahead and hit that like button if you are learning something and you're enjoying the stream. Yeah, and of course, feel free to let me know if you have any questions. Like I said, I honestly haven't used the live input feature on the Granulator a whole lot, but now that I've tried that out, I might need to try that some more. I wonder if... All right, I want to try an experiment just to kind of show you what you can do with Granular. So we're going to have the audio track here. And we're going to try receiving from a microphone. Let's put this on off. Testing. It's a little quiet. This is probably going to sound terrible because of microphone settings. Testing, check 1, 2. How is this microphone sound okay? Is it working at all? Testing 1, 2. We're going to take this guy. How sound okay? All right, we're going to take this guy. We're going to crop it. I'm going to crank up the volume actually first. Is this microphone sound okay? All right, we're going to crop it one more time. I'm going to take this and we're going to put this inside the Granulator. So now, why is that still going? All right, there we go. So there's me talking pitched up, running through a granular synthesizer. Really easy, just take anything and make it sound really cool. Kennedy, I make mostly kind of like down-tempo, bassy experimental music. I've been making a lot of ambient recently. I'm also making some house music recently that I have not released. So I make a little bit, anything that's kind of like weird and has a lot of reverb is kind of the stuff I make. But yeah. So yeah, this is the kind of stuff that granular synthesis is great at. And you take that and then you like put some delay on it. Yeah, great for that kind of thing. So if you like that kind of sound, just make like things like vocals and people talking sound really kind of crazy and strange, Granulator is amazing. And I've been hearing a lot more people doing this kind of stuff in lots of different genres. So I definitely see this becoming more popular kind of as time goes on. Maybe not necessarily Granulator itself, but just granular synthesis in general. Because you can make cool stuff like that. Sweet. So yeah, I think I'm all up to date with I think I'm all updated with chat. Yeah, even if you don't know what you're doing, the only three knobs you really need to be aware of when you are playing with Granulator are the grain size, the position, and the spray. If you get those three working, the rest of the stuff is like bonus. But if you play around with those three settings, you can get something that sounds pretty cool. And now that you kind of know how it works, it's pretty easy to do. But it's hard to, it's not very predictable, I'll say. It's hard to like come into making something with the granular synthesizer knowing what you want to get out of it, because it just comes off as like so crazy all the time. All right, sweet. Any other questions? Anything else you guys want to get into? You guys have had awesome questions so far. I really appreciate you guys coming by and hanging out with me today. All right, I can get rid of that. All right, if nobody's any questions, I do want to go back in here and play around with the shifter a little bit more, because the shifter, I think it is still someone to figure out when would I use this? When would I use the shifter over just pitching something up or down? And I'm not sure I have the answer yet, besides the fact that it has a cool LFO built into it and the delay, maybe like the tone control. I want to try the window. That's the other thing I haven't experimented with yet. So going back, in case you missed the beginning of stream, we have this percussive guy being pitched up with the shifter. Sounds like this. And then we have this guy being pitched up in beats mode. Let's put it on tones mode because that sounds the most similar. Sounds kind of similar. However, the window control, I think here might make a huge difference. So I'm gonna try playing around with this. It sounds a little less flangy, a little less kind of like a weird delay is on it, but it does have a more kind of like tinny feel to it, I think. Or we could try it the really large window and see what happens. Yeah, that sounds even more chaotic. So maybe we just keep the window, the default's at 80. Maybe we'll keep it at like 30 and see what happens. Right, that sounds pretty similar to this, I think. Okay, good to know. Sounds better, less flangy with smaller window, and more kind of delay flangy with the window much higher. So Afterparty is asking, what's special about Convolution Reverb? Fantastic question. So it's not as much that it is special as much that it's an entirely different way of approaching reverb. So traditionally, when we're dealing with a reverb, like the live reverb, for example, or any other kind of digital reverb, this is using an algorithm to emulate the illusion of space, right? That's what a reverb does. It's like the sound bouncing through a space. So it sounds like in that space, and I'll turn this up. That's what the reverb's doing, right? So it's using an algorithm to kind of like figure that out. However, if you were to use something like the convolution reverb, and this applies to both the Max for Live convolution reverb as well as the hybrid reverb, they're basically doing the same thing. The convolution reverb, oops, that is broken. Interesting. Well, that didn't happen before. It's also broken. All right, we're going to use the convolution reverb and the hybrid reverb. All right, so hybrid reverb has both. It has convolution over here, and it has algorithm over here. You can use one or both using these settings here. So algorithm, as we determined, is using an algorithm to emulate the sound of a space. Whereas convolution is going to be using something called an impulse response file, or an IR file. That says IR right here. So an IR file is basically the sound of a space. And you can create IR files anywhere. You could go to a church or like an auditorium or the Grand Canyon, and you could create an impulse response file by basically setting a bunch of microphones and then recording in that space, and then you delete the original sound. You process it in a very special way that deletes the original sound you made, and you're left with just the sound of that space. So impulse response files, for the most part, are based off of real world spaces. They're like the sound of a real world space. And then you apply that real world space to any signal that you run through it. Hey Ray, how's it going? Yeah, we're talking about convolution and impulse responses. So in both the Convolution Reverb Max for Live device, as well as the hybrid reverb, we basically have two drop-down menus here. We have one that's just a bunch of folders of different spaces that they have provided for you. So if I wanted to go to the bigger spaces, for example, the second drop-down menu is a bunch of impulse responses from real spaces. So in the Max for Live one, they have a Swedish nuclear reactor. They have what they label as a NYC Sports Center, which is probably Madison Square Garden, but they just can't say that because of whatever reason. So here is a cathedral. So now as I run through this is the sound from a very specific cathedral that they grabbed an impulse response from and then loaded up here as a preset, which is really cool. On top of that, with both the Max for Live as well as the hybrid reverb, you can load up your own. So you could go online, do a little bit of Googling, find a bunch of impulse response files, download them, and load them up in here if you wanted to, which is really cool. So the end result of a convolution reverb versus an algorithmic reverb is that they have a different feel to them. Algorithmic reverbs sound really cool, and you can get some really realistic sounding algorithmic reverbs, but there's something really kind of clean, in my opinion, about a convolution reverb because it's based off of an actual space. Now, if you're using hybrid, you can use both. You can both at the same time, which is really cool. Highly recommend doing that. The one thing that you do need to watch out for when it comes to using almost any, not all of them, but almost all of them, any of the convolutions, is that the size of them is huge. If this is just one of the presets, that's probably too much reverb. Yeah, convolutions sound great on vocals. I mean, they both sound great on vocals, but convolution, great for vocals, because then it sounds like your singer is standing in the middle of a real world space. So a lot of these convolution files, too much, too big. And because a lot of times with reverb, you want it to be subtle. You want it to just be just enough in there, just so you get a little bit. So what you can do here is you can adjust both the size percentage here and the decay here. So between these two controls, if I start turning this down, we can see here is our decay time. So if you don't want it to be as long, you can adjust the size here. You can also adjust the decay here. You can also make it bigger. You can also adjust the attack, so you can actually see it changes the shape of the file, which is kind of cool. So if you want to do almost like a reverse reverb. All right, it's super hot out today, so I opened my window, and then now there's all these sounds going on outside. So I'm gonna close my window real quick. Yeah, it sounds like they're deciding to test the sprinkler system outside right now. So yeah, you can play with attack. Mostly you're playing with the decay because most of the decays are just honestly way too big. And that way you can get like the nice amount of convolution reverb you want in there and not have it be too over the top. Or you can mix and match and use multiple reverbs at the same time. Sounds really good. So that's kind of the main difference. Algorithmic reverbs, meaning almost any reverb, any digital reverb besides a convolution reverb, is going to be using an algorithm to emulate the spatial element of a sound, whereas convolution is going to be using impulse responses to generate that sound. And anytime you're using a convolution or an impulse response, usually you need to tone down the decay. Because a lot of them are just like super huge. But they just sound really good in my opinion. They sound really clean, which I like a lot. So I like convolution reverbs quite a bit. That's why hybrid reverb is amazing, because it just like does whatever you need it to do. Yeah, a lot of fun stuff you can do with it. And if you don't own Live 11 and you don't have access to the hybrid reverb, there is the Max for Live convolution reverb, which is basically its own standalone thing that for some reason is broken in 11.1. Cool. Does that answer your question, After Party, about convolutions versus regular reverbs? That's a really good question. I might have to do a video just about the differences between the two, because I think a lot of people don't realize how cool convolution reverb is. It's kind of like Granulator. If you know how cool it is, you know how cool it is. And if you don't, then you probably never end up using them. Cool. Anybody else in chat have any questions, thoughts, opinions, things that they want to talk about? Sweet. Well, if anybody does have anything that comes up for them, just let me know in the chat. I appreciate all you guys coming out and hanging out today. And until somebody asks me a question, I'm going to go back to the shifter thing and figure out how to make it sound better, because I'm still questioning the quality I'm getting out of this a little bit. So back to the shifter being on, we want the window to be small, but not too small. I wonder if the wide will change anything here. So Dan is asking about, I hear a lot about restrictions and constraints as being useful as a creative tool. Do you think going back to live light from Suite would help you be creative? I think, oh, what's up, Sleep Machine? Thanks for that. I appreciate that. Yes, I think creative restrictions themselves are nearly mandatory. If I go in and I just try to make anything, I end up wasting so much time just screwing around, making presets, tweaking knobs, just doing all kinds of stuff. And so I think those kinds of creative restrictions are absolutely, like I said, not essential, but they're a big part of the process. And when I'm going to be doing the 50 songs next year, 100% I'm going to be having like lots of restrictions, and maybe I'll make those restrictions public so different people can make them. I think downgrading to Suite or downgrading to Live Light after using Suite, I probably wouldn't end up doing, but I might pretend that I'm using Suite, for example. So the big thing about, sorry, I keep saying Suite when I meant intro. I might pretend that I'm using intro, which basically means that I have, is it 8 tracks or 16 tracks? It's 8 scenes, 16 tracks or something like that. And basically none of the instruments, except for simpler drum racks and like one other one, I think, Maybe sampler. No, sampler isn't sweet. So for example, I might make one that's just like make a song only using Simpler. Can't use any of the devices. Simpler plus effects. So that might be an example of a creative restriction that 100% I would use. But in terms of like downloading the intro version of Live and installing it, probably not that much, but I can pretend that I'm using introversion and still live within those restrictions. So yeah, creative restrictions, use them. It's the best thing you can do. The other big creative restriction that I really like doing that's helpful more than probably anything else is not just tools, but time. Restrict yourself on time. Can you write and finish a song in 1 hour? Or like how far can you get in an hour? That's I think is the best way to become good at producer. If you want to be like just crushing as producer for like 30 days in a row, write a song in 1 hour every day. It's 1 hour. Even if you're working a 9 to 5 and have a pretty busy schedule, you can fit an hour into your schedule. Sit down, write a song, an hour, it's done. You're not allowed to work anymore. And see what changes in your process after 30 days. You'll learn a lot, and that's essentially what I did with my videos for the YouTube channel. Like 2 videos a week for a year. It's 100 videos. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think the big thing about making music today is just that like, who has time? Everybody I know is working real hard, has wife, kids, family, relationships, friends, things they're doing, and it's like music doesn't need to be your only focus. Like when I was in my early 20s and I was making music, I was convinced that if I spent 8, 9, 10, 12 hours a day making music, then that's what I needed. And that's not true. Because when you end up working that long, you end up spending like 8 hours a day making tracks, you end up just wasting so much time. Being distracted, being not focused, all that kind of stuff. And then when I spend an hour a day, just hour, 100% focused, I get way more done than I could an entire day making music. So time restrictions is the best thing you can do, I think, more than anything else, because it forces you just to make decisions fast. And that's the best thing you can do when you're making music. It just make stuff all the time. But yeah, I'm big on restrictions. I love them. I think I've made videos on that in the channel. I used to run an Ableton program here in Colorado, and it was a 6-month program. And the end of each month, there was a project that was due. And month number 4, they had to write a song in class from scratch. So they had basically 2 hours to write and finish the song, an hour and a half. And then everybody shared theirs with the class. And it's the kind of thing where the first couple times you do it, it's garbage. There's just not enough time. But once you do it 5 or 6 times, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, however many times, you start to be like, okay, first 10 minutes is my drum beat. Next 10 minutes is my bass line. Next 10 minutes is my melody. Cool, I got all these ideas. Next 10 minutes is arranging. Okay, next 10 minutes is gonna be mixing. Last 5 minutes is mastering. Boom, there's my song. And it's like you gotta be on it, and you don't have time to screw around on, I'm gonna write another melody, or I'm gonna write, do a different thing. So you just got to do it, and that's the best thing you can do, I think. So Brian is asking about how to make a simple synth sound fatter, like a ghostly echo. So I understand what you mean by making a simple synth sound fatter. I'm not entirely sure what you mean by ghostly echo. Like in my mind, when I think ghostly echo, I think like a reverb and a delay and like maybe some chorus or something like that. But let me know if you have something more specific you're looking for. But we can definitely talk about how to make simple synth sounds sound fatter. All right, so let's use some wavetable here. Cool. So say we got just our saw wave or square wave. About as simple as it get, every single synthesizer can do that. If I'm looking to make this sound fatter, and different people's definitions of fatter might be slightly different, the first couple of things that come to my mind are, number one, these built-in analog modeling settings for the filters in Live. And if you're using any of the Live synths, if you're using Operator, Wavetable, any of those things, these are great because you can basically run a sound through this. We can take this, pick whatever mode we want. These are all modeled after different analog filters. Take the drive control right here and start cranking up the drive. And it just, number one, makes it way louder. Number two, it's going to mess with the frequencies a little bit to make it sound, like I said, a little fatter, a little grittier, but also just louder. And they all sound a little different, especially if we filter it. So trying out those is a great way to do it. There's also, if you're using either operator or sampler, there's another way to do this that's basically the same thing in the filter here. So we'll try the same thing. We'll do like a little saw wave or square wave. There's a built-in shaper right here. So if I try this, there's 4 different ways to do saturation. There's soft, hard, sine, and 4-bit. So you can try those out, kind of work the same way, and you can use these in addition to the filter modeling modes. So you can try those out. That's a great way to kind of like beef up a sound. On top of that, if we're talking about just kind of like ways to make things sound a little thicker, in addition to using the Saturator here, there's also just the straight up live Saturator. This device is one of my favorites of all time. Once you kind of know roughly how the Saturator works, it's really one of those things where just like you can make anything sound better. If you're looking at just like big, rich, full sound, fantastic for that kind of thing. So once again, if we're starting with the square wave here, there's only really 3 really important knobs on the Saturator or controls. There's the saturation type. We have these like 7 options. We have the drive. More drive means more volume going in, which means more saturation, also more volume. And we have the dry wet. Those 3 controls. If you can do those 3 controls, you can make Saturator work for you. So first option is Saturator type. Let me turn this up a little bit. So analog clip, in my opinion, is too subtle. It just doesn't do a whole lot for me. So analog clip, I'm not a big fan of. Soft sine and cyanide fold, to me, sound very, very similar, almost exactly the same, unless you like really crank the settings. So if I turn this up, so from here to there, already sounds fatter. Cyanide fold sounds very, very similar. Medium curve is going to be a little bit more kind of gritty and distorted. We can even try this on a sine wave so we can like really hear it. So medium curve, cyanide fold, and then hard curve is if you like really want to go for it, you want to get really aggressive. You can switch between those. And you're getting basically different amounts of harmonic distortion. If you're not familiar with how harmonic distortion works, we're basically going from a sine wave that looks like this, and then we're adding in extra harmonics. So the spectrum analyzer is such a great way to kind of like see what's going on here. But it sounds great on everything. Usually I keep this between 0 and 5. If I really want to go for it, I'll, somewhere 5 to 10 on decibels here. If I'm going to be using the hard curve, usually I will turn the dry wet down. That way it's not quite so obvious there. if you really want to push it, you can turn the soft clip on, which means you will no longer clip. So if you were to crank the settings here, it does not go above 0 dB, so it does not clip anywhere. So if you want to get some like really heavy distortion, you can get some like pretty different results that way. Like I said, for just subtlety and just everyday usage, 0 to 5 on the drive, whichever one of these sounds the best, and then if you need to, adjust the dry wet kind of to your taste. Makes almost any, even if it's really basic sound, just like helps fill it out a little bit. So those are the amongst the first things that I'll check out when doing just simple sound design, just making it sound a little beefier. Just helps out. What you're asking about, like a ghostly echo, one thing you could try is a little bit of Unison. So Unison is going to add in extra voices and allow you to detune those voices. So instead of playing one oscillator, it's going to play multiple oscillators at the same time that are slightly different pitches, which gets this like much kind of like thicker, wider feeling to it. So here it is with 3 voices with a very small amount, and you'll notice the harmonics are going to change. So here it is with nothing. Sounds cool. But if we add a little bit of Unison, you can see all the frequencies fluttering up and down. If we crank the settings, you get this much kind of like thicker, wider kind of sound. So that's gonna be a great way to beef things up. I wouldn't recommend going above 50% on the amount because then it sounds too out of tune. In this case, it sounds great, but in most situations, too much detune and it just doesn't work. So that's a great way to thicken things up. And then other than that, like I said, a little bit of reverb and delay. Depends if you're doing kind of like bassy sound design or you're doing other kinds of sound design. A lot of times when I think trying to make like big fat sounds, I think bass sounds, but you might be talking about something else. But in terms of like the ghostly echo, reverbs and delays, echo is excellent because it has both in one. So it's a delay, but it also has reverb. And so maybe you'll have a smaller, faster decay time, less feedback. Something kind of like that. We could do like a really fast. Something that kind of like. That's kind of what I think about when I think of the term ghostly echo, which is what you said. Really fast delay, a little bit of reverb, feedback kind of to taste. Or you could try using something like jumping back to the hybrid reverb, something like the shimmer setting on the hybrid reverb. This is going to pitch your reverb. And we want to shimmer all it. Something like that, to me, is also what I think of when I think of the term ghostly echo. So, yeah, those are the things when I think sound fatter, like a ghostly echo. Let me know if there's any other kind of techniques or things you're looking for. Yeah, so I've also noticed hybrid reverb on 11.1 has been sounding a lot better. And if you don't want to use hybrid reverb, you of course could use the classic Valhalla. Oh no, this is not working anymore. Man, 11.1 really screwed up a lot of things. But use the Valhalla shimmer to do the shimmer ghostly echo sound. So Kenny's saying he's trying to get on board with plugins, but it's tough for me to get the sound that I want. I spent years downloading and trying every plugin I could get my hands on. And then in the last couple of years especially, I barely use any plugins. I use almost everything in the box, just stuff that comes with Live. There's a few plugins that I still really love that I will use all the time. But for the most part, almost anything I want to do, I can do with Live stuff, and it sounds great. So use plugins if you want, but don't feel like you need to use plugins to get any sounds. And then Dan was asking, what instruments do I play? Did you start production or instruments first? So I played guitar back in high school. I grew up listening to a lot of like punk rock. That's like my kind of musical background, mostly just kind of power chords kind of thing. And then that kind of evolved into just kind of like general underground, weird experimental music, which then kind of evolved into electronic music. So I haven't played guitar recently. I was never very good to begin with, but that was kind of like how I got into making music. And then these days I mostly play MIDI controllers. So I play push or whatever MIDI controllers in front of me. But yeah. So yeah, I technically started instruments first, but then I actually learned how to do all the things with production. Yeah, no worries, Brian. Thanks for popping by. Hopefully I will see you again sometime soon. Nice, Scott. You're using Listen to for like Zoom audio and things like that. For those of you guys who don't know, there is a plugin called Listen to. By Audio Movers. That basically it's a plugin you can put inside of Live, and then it will stream out that audio so people can listen to it in real time, essentially. This is particularly useful if you are using Zoom a lot for doing audio stuff. So if you're doing, I teach a bunch on Zoom, or you're like doing a workshop or something like that on Zoom. The audio quality on Zoom is generally pretty garbage. There's a few ways to tweak it and make it sound better, but it kind of sucks. And so I've been using this for teaching. So basically students will, you hear me talking through Zoom, but they'll hear my music through a website that I send out a link to. So they can hear it high quality in real time. Sounds great. So if you're somebody who does a lot of audio on the internet, especially with Zoom, and you want to get audio from your computer to somebody else and they can like see what you're doing, this is a really cool solution. And Ganya is using it for live jamming, which I have not used it for live jamming. It seems like a really cool solution for a lot of like remote collaboration. So Kennedy is asking, is there a way to extract vocals in Ableton? Technically, yes. So I made a video on this, I think, on this channel. I think it was. No, it might have been on an old video for a different channel I made a long time ago. So the technology around extracting stems out of audio has developed and changed a lot in the last couple years. And a bunch of companies like iZotope have plugins that can do it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Those plugins are generally fairly expensive. However, there is a Max for Live device called Spleeter. Let me pull this up here. Spleeter. This is available for donation, so it costs you like $1 to do it. A friend of mine made this. And she's awesome. This is a really cool thing. Basically, it's a Mac SilverLive device that connects to an AI that can take a song and split it into 4 stems. I think it's drums, bass, vocals, and everything else. If I'm not mistaken. I haven't used them in a while. And it's honestly works pretty well. It's not perfect, but it's amongst the best solutions I've found for doing this kind of thing, basically taking a song and dividing it into stems. The most difficult part is installing it and getting all the installations done correctly. However, once you do that, it works pretty well. It's pretty, it does the job, and it sounds pretty decent. So it's not perfect, but it works really well. So recommend checking this out. This is available off of Bandcamp. You basically click the thing, you can download it here. Make sure to thoroughly read the instructions because, like I said, installing it is kind of a pain. But once you get it installed and once you get it working once, after that, it's really not that big a deal. And it works really well, and you can do it to any song. And it's a super fun way to do sampling and things like that. If you want to grab acapellas from a song, try it out. Let me know how it goes, because I have told a number of people about this, and some people have told me that they love it and it was absolutely 100% everything they've ever hoped and dreamed for. And some people have been like, I just couldn't get it to work. So let me know how that goes. It can be a little tricky. It tends to work better on Mac computers that I've noticed. I tried and help somebody install on a PC, and it was kind of a nightmare. But yeah, like I said, I think I did a video for another channel that I used to make content for a long time ago. Mr. Bill also has a video on this. If you have not checked out Mr. Bill's channel, I don't know what you're doing here. He's got really fantastic videos about lots of crazy stuff. And he did a video specifically on this, and it is, like I said, worth checking out. And I believe I've heard, I haven't tried this yet, you can change how the AI works. And instead of doing 4 stems, you can do 2 stems, vocals and everything else. I haven't tried that myself, but that's something I heard you can do. You can like go in and tweak it a little bit and set it up so you can just make basically instrumentals and acapellas if you want. Sweet. Awesome. Anybody else out there who is maybe just joining us recently, got any questions or anything you guys want to get into? I think I got it through everybody. So funny. Every time I try to have a stream where I try to do something on Tuesdays where I try to okay, we're gonna experiment with the shifter effect, and then those are the streams where everybody shows up with lots of questions, and then I never actually get around to doing the thing I meant to do, but that's totally fine. All right, so yeah, Dan, thanks for popping by. I'll see you again soon, hopefully. Glad you liked it. All right, so we got this shifter thing here. Play with the window. We're gonna play with the tone control. This is basically just a filter as far as I know. So I don't think this is going to massively increase our pitch shifting questions or pitch shifting capabilities, but we'll try it out and see what happens. Yeah, Kennedy, the whole point of these streams is just for me to answer questions anyway. So I actually would prefer, I actually like it better when people come in with lots of questions. Yeah, this is basically just a filter. So that's not changing a huge amount. And then we have delay. This is just gonna be a delay. Yeah, it's just delay. That also changes pitch, apparently. Yeah, it continually goes up. It's interesting. All right. The last major test I wanted to do here is the MIDI input. Is the MIDI input any different in the course than changing the course frequency here, or is it basically just exactly the same thing? I think it's different though. We'll have to see. So we're gonna switch this to MIDI mode. Interesting, when you put it on the MIDI input here, it doesn't change this to plus or minus, it just changes it to, it's still just a value, or is this still a value there? Interesting. All right, so we're gonna grab some MIDI here, we'll make a new clip. We're just gonna plug in some notes. So if I have a C note and an E note, and we grab the MIDI from our MIDI track. Now, does that actually pitch it? And if I do something like this, interesting. Yeah, it's not actually taking the pitch of the notes that we're sending it. This is the part that I feel like needs some exploration. That does sound pretty cool though. Crazy. All right. Try duplicating this. Does it treat it like it's a sampler where C3 is just the root note? All right. I'm glad we're doing this experimentation here because this is not working the way I thought it was going to. Okay, so it treats it like a sampler, where C3 is just the original pitch. And if I go up one here to C sharp 3, it just pitches up one semitone. It doesn't actually take the value of the note that's here, which is unexpected to me. Just want to check one thing on this. How the pitch frequency is set. Instrumental pitch frequency set by the frequency down, set by an incoming MIDI note. All right, we need to do some more experiments here. We're gonna get to the bottom of this. All right, so we're gonna have this play F, F, G, G. Beautiful music. And we're gonna grab a tuner here. So now if we grab the frequency shifter, and we grab MIDI from our MIDI track right here, this is just gonna send it C3. Let's see what happens. And then if I send it D3, just gonna pitch it up, everything up 2 semitones. Crazy. So it doesn't act like in auto tune or anything like that. it treats it like it's a sampler, where C3 is just going to play the original pitch. And then as you move up or down from C3, it's going to pitch it up or down. If I'm not mistaken, which makes it very difficult to use, to like actually have things be the pitch you want them to be. Yeah, this is fascinating to me. But if everything's down here, it should sound normal. And if these go up sequentially, yeah, that I feel like makes the MIDI pitch mode really not that interesting, because there's not really much you could do here that you couldn't just do with automating this. I was under the impression when I first tested this out that it would just take whatever notes are here and it would just pitch them to match these particular notes. And it does not appear to work that way. It appears to be that C3 is the original pitch of the sample, and then every one you go above C3 pitches it up a semitone, and every one you go below C3 pitches it down a semitone. Which is like not particularly interesting. So if we interesting. All right. Well, at least we figured out how that works. This is still gonna need some playing around with to make it really sound good, but yeah, I guess I'm not as excited about the shifter as I was originally when I first played around with it. I feel like it's cool, but if I'm working with audio, pitching using the warp mode and the transposition modulation sounds better. If I am pitching with MIDI, why would I not just actually pitch the MIDI notes? Like that's just gonna sound better automatically. So I guess I'm curious, and if anybody in chat can let me know, what is the situation you're gonna use the pitch control on the shifter that you wouldn't do with either warping or changing MIDI notes? And like maybe it's just specifically to do like weird delay pitch stuff. I mean, that sounds kind of cool. I mean, it sounds a little like kind of weird and out of tune. It's like weird like horror carnival sounds. I guess this is kind of cool. I'm like getting into this. That's cool. You can use this some like weird granular kind of delays. That's kind of cool. Oop, feedback. That's kind of cool. And then we can put a little LFO on it. It's just mostly, you can use it for these like weird spinny sounds. Yeah. Other than weird kind of spooky sounds or weird kind of like cartoony sound effects, I wonder if I'm going to end up using this a whole lot. Because I think there are better solutions. I guess it'd be cool for pitching up things live, pitching things up or down live in tune. So if you had like a live vocalist and you wanted to pitch them live, but even then you're probably better off just using like auto-tune or something like that. That's going to be more accurate and probably sound better. Like this might just kind of sound kind of crazy. So yeah, interesting device. I'm definitely going to play around with some more. I do think the pitch modes here doesn't do what I wanted to do, so I'm sad about that. But other than that, I think it's kind of cool. So that was my task for the day. Let's get that to figure out how that pitch mode works. Sweet. Well, at this point, I've been streaming for a while now. I'm probably going to end up calling it for the evening in a few minutes. Before I do that, I just want to make sure that if there's anybody out there who has any questions or things that they want to talk about, now would be the time to get it in. As always, I will be here on Friday or as almost always, I'll be here on Friday for the song feedback stream. So if you guys have tracks you're working on and want to get some feedback on them, send them over my way for a Friday stream, same time, 6 p.m. Eastern time. I may or may not be back next Tuesday for the office hours stream next Tuesday. I might have to go out of town briefly. I might try to stream from my laptop. I'm pretty sure that's not going to work, but I might try it anyway. And so you may see me, but it might be a very abbreviated, limited capability stream next week for the Tuesday stream. But I promise you guys I will have more info about the 50 songs a year song challenge. Probably in the next couple weeks. I'll have like a more kind of like official video talking about what we're gonna be doing next year for the channel, big changes I'm gonna be making in terms of streaming schedules and other stuff like that. So that'll all be coming your way real soon. So keep an eye out for that. But yeah, thanks for everybody for popping by. I appreciate everybody coming in with questions. Kennedy, I think this is the first time I've seen you here, so welcome. And yeah, I hope you guys have a really good evening. And I will see you on Friday. Take care of yourself. Make some music.